This is Senior Moments on Santa Clarita's hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I'm Joel Green along with Laura Smith. Today we're talking about elder abuse and neglect with Valerie Schultz. Valerie is a licensed clinical social worker with the Genesis program in LA County, and Suzanne Nelson, Director of Supportive Services at the Santa Clarita Valley Senior Center. We're talking about elder abuse and some of the different kinds of elder abuse. And it's physical abuse. What is emotional abuse? I'm not sure I understand what that is.
Emotional abuse can be just a lot of it is the verbal abuse, but it can be ignoring somebody. It could be humiliating them. Could be insulting them, name calling, a multitude of things, verbal being one of them, but also ignoring somebody can be very emotionally abusive. It's hard to quantify that, but it can be as detrimental, if sometimes even worse, than sometimes the physical abuse, because the emotional abuse will wear you down and emotionally beat you down.
Because I think that so many people, when they hear abuse, they think of physical abuse, they think of financial
Right.
abuse, they think of those kinds of much more overt
Right.
kinds of abuses, as opposed to some of the things that are so much more subtle and so
Right.
much more long term.
Right.
Go ahead,
If
Susan.
I could interject, also the threats.
Yes.
And oftentimes it's a caregiver, maybe a son or daughter, but the threats, if you don't do this, like give me money,
Right.
I'm going to put you in a nursing home.
Yes.
And so the senior is fearful that they're going to be thrown out into the street or have to go somewhere other than in their own home. And it's constant.
Yes.
Part of what we're talking about today is elder abuse and neglect. What falls under the heading of neglect?
Abandonment is a big issue. If they're a caregiver in the home and they're gone all day and that senior is left in a bed, cannot access water, cannot access food, linens are soiled, they're not receiving the medication, they're not going to their doctors, that is definitely neglect. Or they may have somebody in the home who is not attending to their physical or emotional needs, who's out watching TV or out doing their own thing and leaving the senior alone. All of those needs get neglected. The physical, the mental, the medical, that would be a neglect.
Those are all very serious types of neglect.
Exactly.
What about something a little less serious, where they're clean and they have access to water, but they're just kind of pretty much locked away and nobody comes and sees
Right.
them?
Isolation is a very big issue regarding neglect. We all need people. Seniors especially need human contact. They need to be able to talk to someone. They need that social connection. And that's a very good point you brought up. It's just not providing them with any kind of stimulation. It's not just basic needs. It's not just food and meals. They need to have access to other people. They need to be engaged.
What if they choose not to?
Well, that's just another issue. I mean, because seniors, everybody has a right to choose, and unless there is some diagnosable issue that prevents them from being able to make decisions, could be like dementia, Alzheimer's, something along those lines, or other medical or mental health issues, they have the right to make choices, good or bad.
Suzanne, do you ever see somebody kind of forcing people into the senior center, like my friend or my dad, I really want to get you social and I'm dragging you in?
We see people pull up to the curb, open the door, and just kind of basically throw them out the door. And oftentimes might be people that might have dementia, and that's not appropriate. That's another form of abuse. But we're happy they did it at the senior center, because then we can intervene and get them the services that they need. But I don't know if we covered this. I don't think we have, but the senior center is a mandated reporting agency. So anyone that we see that there might be a slight suspect of abuse, yelling, or financial, we're mandated to report that to Adult Protective Services for further investigation.
Many of the members of the Senior Alliance are mandated reporters as well as you know, and that's a very very important thing to remember, is that the general public has a responsibility as well. We can't just walk around like ostriches and put our head in the sand, and if we see something especially overt, not do anything and not say anything. We're talking about elder abuse and neglect. Stay with us and we'll tell you what you could and should do. You're listening to Senior Moments on Santa Clarita's hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. I'm Joel Green along with Laura Smith on Santa Clarita's hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. Have you seen signs of elder abuse or neglect? Well, if you did, you need to listen, because we're talking with Valerie Schultz, licensed clinical social worker with the Genesis program within LA County, and we're talking also with Suzanne Nelson, director of our own Santa Clarita Valley Senior Center, director of supportive services. We're talking about what do we do if we see signs of elder abuse and neglect? Do we just not do anything? Just say, too bad.
What we encourage, well, there's the mandated reporters. There's the people who have to report, people who are.
What does that mean, mandated?
That means we are legally bound to report. If we suspect, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to actually see an abuse occur. If we suspect some abuse is occurring, we are legally mandated to call and report. That would be your healthcare professionals, that would be teachers, nurses, a senior center. I think even banks, I believe they have to as well. But anybody can report, and you report because it's the right thing to do. If you have any suspicions, these nosy neighbors everybody complains about, I love. They're like the watchdogs of the neighborhood. They know who belongs there, who doesn't. Anything that looks a little suspicious, people coming in and out of a house, all of a sudden your neighbor has got a new best friend.
What is that? Isn't that a good thing?
And it can be. I don't mean to negate that, but we typically see isolated seniors. All of a sudden, somebody shows up, usually significantly younger than the senior, and all of a sudden they're showing up daily. They're there with the person all the time. They begin to start isolating them. Little red flags families can be aware of. If you start seeing changes in your parents' environment, you start seeing people come you don't know, you start seeing changes in their banking account, little red flags, and it can be minute changes.
But can't that new best friend take mom or dad to the bank 3, 4, 5 times a week?
Definitely, and banks have cameras. And these are all things that families need to be aware of. That doesn't mean anything illegal is going on. What that does mean is watch. The more eyes involved with a senior, the more of a safeguard you have, the more people you have involved. And be aware of certain situations. If they've got a new caregiver and this caregiver starts isolating them, all of a sudden the sons or daughters can't get through. They're making phone calls and, oh, well, we can't today because she's got a doctor's appointment, or we can't today because she's not feeling good. If they start isolating your loved one, or if they start to call, they won't allow you to see your mom or dad unless they're present. I tell people, stop by unannounced. Stop by board and care unannounced. Stop by your parents' home unannounced. Look through the mailings, look through the bills, keep an eye on the accounts, just be aware, be mindful.
Part of what we're talking about today is not only elder abuse, but it's neglect. We see on television all the time all these shows about hoarding. Is that even real?
Oh yeah. It is probably we call it's kind of a hidden issue in some ways, because typical people who hoard are going to keep their doors and windows closed. They're not going to let people in. They're aware they may have a problem, but they're also afraid somebody's going to come in to take away their stuff. And there is an emotional connection to their stuff. The problem with hoarding is that by the time we get out there, the hoarding has been going on for many, many years, and now it's crossed over to where you need to pull in code enforcement, you need to pull in other agencies, because it becomes an unhealthy environment. And I tell people, you know, to be not only the person who's living in an environment, it can be risky. There's all kinds of health issues you can encounter in living in an environment. Say there might be insect or vermin, and you might be exposed to the dust from their feces or urine, or there could be other health issues in there. So it's not only unsafe for the senior, but it's also unsafe for anybody who goes in there. So just be aware of that too. But I'd love to get to these seniors before it reaches the point where it's starting to spill out and neighbors are noticing and code enforcement becomes, you know, starts calling and they start getting cited, because at that point it becomes very difficult to provide therapeutic assistance.
Do you see that as well, Suzanne, within supportive services?
We don't see as much hoarding as Valerie does, but yes, we do see some hoarding, and it could be just plastic bags. And
that's
they
neat.
tend to put it into one bedroom in the garage. They may have their little living area that's devoid of hoarding, but if you go to check the rest of their house, there could be, you can't even get the door open with some of these places.
You, with the senior center, some of the things that you provide are in-home meals that you deliver. Is that sometimes when the people who deliver, do they see these things?
They can report it, and thank goodness that those volunteers know the people they're delivering to, because they are our eyewitness to if there's a change going on with Mrs. Jones or Mr. Smith, that then we can get them the help immediately that they might need and intervene early.
Well, we've discussed hoarding, and we've discussed some abuse and some neglect. And to me, I would think that abuse and neglect are certainly something that is the headline grabber. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about elder abuse and neglect with our guest, Valerie Schultz. Valerie is a licensed clinical social worker with the Genesis program in LA County, and Suzanne Nelson, our own Director of Supportive Services at the Santa Clarita Valley Senior Center. You are listening to Senior Moments on KHTS, your hometown station, AM 1220.